What's up guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about a very spicy topic. This is going to basically be important for you as you get more experience with lifting, and I think it's a pretty funny or at least fun topic to talk about, and that is people telling you that you have better genetics than them and that's why you look how you look basically. So I have gotten, I think, comments about not my genetics, but I remember specifically one comment on my shorts. I was in a pull-ups every day short, and I remember a guy saying something along the lines of, how did you get a back like that? And I was going to respond to the comment, right? But I forgot. And then when I returned to respond to the comment, right? I remember a guy saying something along the lines of like steroids, right? I think he just answered steroids now that I think about it. And I remember watching that and I'm like, what? Like, I feel flattered, of course, right? But how black-pilled you had to be, right, to believe that I was on steroids back then even. Like, I would say now I have a better physique than like a couple of months ago, let alone 2021, right? So imagine thinking that 2021 protein man was on steroids, right? That guy would be blown away if he still saw watch my videos, right? But this is to exemplify a thing that we're going to talk about, and that is that people usually like to, let's just say, justify their actions, right, or their mistakes. They don't like to admit their mistakes. But before we can start about that, I'm going to explain to you basically what happened to me in real life, not in YouTube, where there are a lot of black pills, a lot of black pill cells, I guess, black pilled individuals. I'm talking about real life, real actual life. I touched some grass, right? So I'm starting to go to the gym. I have been going to the gym, I think, for 9 days, I guess. Less than 2 weeks, right? So in the 9 days that I went to the gym, I got told 4 times that I had good, great, or amazing genetics, right? In fact, one of the guys, the situations are hilarious, at least from my perspective, right? Some guy even compared me to Tom Platz. Let's just get into it. So I'm going to tell you basically what happened. I'm not going to talk about one specific case, which I don't think it goes to talk about that guy because he was just starting out, and you can't really like expect someone that just started out to have realistic expectations. Usually they're either delusional, they think they're going to look like Chris Hemsworth, or they think that they're not going to gain that much muscle at all, right? They're delusional or black-pilled. So I don't want to talk about that guy, so I'm going to talk about the other ones. So the first one is an old guy. So I was doing on the dips machine, right? I was working my triceps. That machine, by the way, very underrated. If you position yourself diagonally to the machine, it's kind of awkward to set up, but once you have it, nice triceps work. So I was doing triceps back and forth with a guy that was using dips machine, right? And I tell him about something about aligning yourself diagonally to the machine to get a nice stretch on the triceps. And the guy starts to talk, and he has some lingo that you can identify that the guy trains. So I'm like, you seem to know a lot, and the guy goes something along the lines of like, yeah, I have been working out for like 50 years. I actually had my own gym, and I'm like, yo, that's impressive. I wish I could be like you. I just dropped the compliment because honestly, like working out for 50 years is pretty impressive. And then the guy lifts his shirt and he's like diced. 68 years old, I think he was, and he was fucking jacked. Like 12% body fat approximately. And I'm like, yo, that's actually pretty impressive. And the guy starts to say, yeah, thanks, you look jacked too, blah, blah, blah. So we start to talk, and he asks me my age, right? And I go like 20, and he looks like me like this, and goes like, oh, you have been going to the gym for a while. And I tell him, actually, no, like I technically trained for 4 years, right? But I didn't get any results for 2 years because I was training properly. And then on the pandemic, I bought rings, and I have been training with rings and bands for 2 years. And the guy looks at me and it's like confused and tells me, well, you have great genetics. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, you have great genetics. And I think, well, he may be referring to my legs, right? Because I told him I trained with rings, with calisthenics. So I tell him, what do you think I have good genetics for? And I shit you not, I was expecting either my legs or my chest or my shoulders, especially my side delts. I was expecting something along those lines. No, he decides to compliment my arms. my fucking arm. Like, dude, it's you can make this shit up. I have the Mike Wazowski build, dude. Like, I look like fucking Mike Wazowski, yeah. I have long fucking arms, right? And I have been obsessively training them for 1 year and a half, like excessively. I have prioritized them every single time. And of course I'm going to develop my arms. That's because I'm training them. So I was like surprised, I'm like, my arms? And he adds, yes, and your forearms too. My forearms, dude, like, if you don't believe me, go ahead and watch my 2021 shorts or my most recent, like most early 2022 shorts. You'll see that no, I had like toothpick arms, not even forearms, toothpick arms, like pipe cleaner forearms. Unbelievably like small, shitty arms, right? So I from that point on, I just disconnected. I was like, this guy's just full of bullshit. And I decided at that point to just add, you know, to see what he would say. And I tell him, I actually worked my ass off with my arms. I actually look like I'm dying every single set, and you're a witness of how hard I go on arm isolation. So I told him I look like I'm going to die every single set, and I trained a lot of volume to failure. And the guy goes like, yeah, but like, have you heard of Tom Platz? And I'm sitting there like, well, standing there, and I'm like, yes. and he starts saying that Tom Platz, although he put in a lot of effort, right? He still had like his legs because mainly due to genetics. Genetics play a huge role. And I told him, oh yeah, that's right. And I'm thinking like, are you fucking comparing me to Tom Platz? And not Tom Platz in general, Tom Platz's legs. The fuck? So that's the first encounter. I talked a little bit with the guy. He wasn't a bad guy, right? He wasn't annoying. But he did tell me that I had like this structure and that structure for bodybuilding. And I'm just thinking about my waist, right? Because my torso is like a fridge, right? It's like my waist is thick, right? So I'm thinking there, yeah, totally bodybuilding structure, yeah, for sure. And something I want to add, after I started to end the conversation with the guy, he added something along the lines of, do you have abs? And I tell him, no, I don't. I like higher body fat percentage. And he started to like constantly try to tell me that abs are better than not having abs, that higher body fat percentages are not that good for looking aesthetic. And at that point I realized what the true intention was, so I cut the conversation there. So that was the first one. The second one was, I was like, it was actually, that's why I'm making this video. So I'm going to train deficit pike push-ups, and a guy comes in and he's like, why aren't you doing like military press? And I told him, oh, these ones are equally as good, right? If you know how to manipulate your leverages, these are like amazing deficit pike push-ups. Shout out to Leon Gainsbourg. So the guy tells me, have you seen Ronnie Coleman do it? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, then why'd you do it? And I'm like, because they work, right? And he tells me, like, tells me that I have pretty good bone structure, that I have, he said, like, I remember this exactly, I don't know if I can translate it correctly to English, but he basically told me that I had thicker bones than him, and because he has skinny guy genetics, he had to struggle 3 times more than me to get the same amount of gains. And I'm going to let it speak by itself. So also the guy said that I had good arm genetics, which I feel flattered, of course, because I mean I have been training my arms to catch up to my physique. I still have to grow them more. But I take it as a compliment that people believe that I was blessed with arms, when in reality I had to work my ass off, right? But it's still annoying, right? And then the last one was from a guy that follows the cringe lord himself, the dumbass, irresponsible asshole Sis, right? So the guy followed Sis and asked me how much I weighed, and I told him I weighed 76 kilograms, right? And the guy tells me, oh, I could never get to that weight. he's taller than me. He's like 180, I think, 178 approximately. And he told me, oh, I couldn't reach that weight. I couldn't reach that size. And I'm like, why not? And he's like, oh, my metabolism, right? And I told him, dude, just eat more, right? Like, it's fucking clear as crystal, right? Crystal clear. And he was in constant denial. He was like, no, but I eat this and I eat that. You know, the skinny guy cope. Oh, I eat like a lot of things and then I lose weight because I have such a bad metabolism and I can't gain weight. You know, the typical thing. So those are the three main ones I want to share. And I mean, I hate it. Like, I feel flattered, don't get me wrong. Wait, let me check the time first. NH style. I may have to do 2 parts because, yeah. No, I still have a little bit more time. We could talk about a couple of extra things. So, basically, I hate that specific thing. I feel flattered, but I hate it because it's a type of coping. Because lifting itself is a coping mechanism, right? But I hate that type of coping that relegates your responsibility or your control over your environment. And does it in a manner in which your ego, right, gets saved, but you are still not getting the results that you want, right? So I have it written right here. People who make mistakes and refuse to acknowledge them try to make it seem like their subpar results stem from either you being gifted or them being cursed, right? They remove decisions from the equation and just attribute it to lottery, right? You either won the genetic lottery or not. Or you're cheating also. The steroids argument applies here. Just replace coping, instead of being like, oh no, you're gifted from, you got help from God, is like you got help from supplements, right? And why is this, right? Why do people do this? So, we tend to basically avoid admitting our mistakes. Even I do it from time to time. And it's very important that you realize that you're doing it constantly, you're lying to yourself constantly, and that you realize that you're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit and everyone else is a piece of shit. It's not that everyone is better than you. It's actually you're basically in the same level in terms of you're constantly making mistakes, you're constantly saying, no, I didn't make mistakes, and you start to throw reasons to why it's not a mistake. I am of the belief that you don't actually reason and then feel, you feel and then reason. So you end up most of the time rationalizing why you did certain things when it's actually just that you wanted to avoid pain, or that you didn't want to go hard, or that it's painful to do something. And you start to make excuses or ways to circumvent that pain. You ended up, and also because you want to avoid responsibility, because responsibility is painful, right? So we tend to we make a lot of mistakes, we tend to avoid responsibility, we tend to try to be as free as possible, but when you relegate your responsibility, you end up with less control than before. So because you want to avoid pain, you want to avoid like having to work through things, you end up rationalizing that it's not that it's actually something else, right? And that is what happens when people tell you that you have great genetics, or that you're cursed and you're gifted, right? That you have it easier. We always like to think that we have it harder than everybody else because we want to believe that we are better than everybody else. That's what mainly what happens. So what mistakes am I talking about, right? So the first one is going to be following the wrong people that black pill you, or that don't give you good information, or that promote a lifestyle that is not conducive to health and results in terms of hypertrophy. So these people I'm going to name call, I don't give a shit. It's Greg Doucette, Athlean-X, Sis mainly, but also you have the rest of the fitness community, especially on TikTok and Instagram. It's cringe, that community is cringe as fuck, can we agree? Like, if you see a reel of your favorite fitness influencer doing the typical Noel Diesel or Sebum Daddy type of reels, just unfollow them. Or if you see them dry scooping pre-workout, if you just see them taking pre-workout, just unfollow them, just straight out. So yeah, And also if they are like talking about a billionaire, the fuck, if they are a Sigma millionaire, it's cringe as fuck, I know. So the moment you see a minimal amount of cringe in your favorite fitness influencer, stop following them. It's usually bad content anyway, so stop watching it. The second one is avoiding consistent, hard, proper, and bland work, right? So as an example, me with isolations. For a while I worked my pull-ups, my dips, but I didn't want to isolate my biceps and my triceps. I had this feeling of like, I don't want to do it, I know it's boring, I have to be there like this, and it doesn't feel okay, and I'm not proficient with the movement, and I started to make excuses to avoid isolating my arms, right? And I was like, no, yeah, but like my chin-ups are working my biceps enough, maybe if I bias more the chin-ups, I'm going to get all that I need, the way to stretch on the rings, and I'm doing ring dips only, so I'm getting the triceps gains and stuff like that, right? So it's basically that, you don't want to do what makes you feel uncomfortable, so you start to make excuses to avoid it. The third one is not eating enough, going back to the but no metabolism. Eat more. If you're not getting weight, eat more. Find ways to get more calories, eat more fast, okay? Don't blame your metabolism, right? It's like if I'm cutting weight and I'm like, oh, I can't lose weight, it's my metabolism. I eat less, I move more. That's how you lose weight. If you want to gain weight, you do the opposite. You move less, you eat more. You train hard, that's how it works. The fourth one is going to be lifestyle. Can you see that I'm getting a little bit anal about the whole thing? The fourth one is going to be lifestyle. Not sleeping enough, overdosing on caffeine, especially with pre-workouts. Stop taking pre-workout, don't be a fucking idiot. And being constantly stressed. So, manage stress. This one is the least important one because we don't live in a very stressful environment outside of if you're an adult and you work and you have a very high stress job. Unless that's the case, in which if you're watching this channel, you probably aren't an adult with a very stressful job. You probably are some 17-year-old that wants to get jacked. So focus on the other two. Stop messing around with your phone, right? Turn off your phone, put it to the side, or if you want to use your phone, just put on some music and lay on bed, right? And then take off your earphones and put it on the side. And drink tops 1 cup of coffee at the morning. And if you want, you can take a second one before 12 p.m. Like, do not take more caffeine than that. Like it's going to change your life. You're going to sleep like a baby. Like, I actually got surprised when I lowered my caffeine intake because I was living similarly to when I was a kid before I took coffee, and I actually will never go back. Like, I'm just drinking 1 cup a day and I feel amazing. I'm sleeping a lot. And it's also going to lower the stress overall. The fifth one is going to be looking for optimal exercises, right? In which I want to redefine optimal. So optimal, right, is going to be or optimal without the capital O, like regular optimal is going to be what optimal gurus say, like for example, iliac like pull downs for lats or chest flies or something like that, right? I'm going to talk about optimal with a capital O. Optimal with a capital O has to take into account what is optimally biomechanically, what enjoyment you get out of the movement, because consistency is a great aspect, right? I talked about this previously. You're avoiding consistent work by jumping onto different optimal exercises every single month. So find optimal exercises, but take into account your enjoyment and your individual response. Some people will do weighted dips and feel them a lot in the triceps. When I do weighted dips, I feel like 99% in my chest. Some people will do push-ups and feel it in their triceps and a little bit in their shoulders. Some may feel it more in their chest. There's a lot of individual variations, right? So you have to find for your specific muscle group what biomechanically works, so you can guide yourself, but you then have to filter it through your enjoyment and your individual case, your individual response. For me at least, for example, I don't feel my biceps working a lot with barbell variations, right? I feel them way more with rings and with cables. With my triceps it's similar. although I found the NH skull crusher to be pretty decent for long head, but in general, I tend to feel my isolations way more with cables, and I'm going to stick to them. I'm going to do 10 sets if it's necessary, but I'm going to not be jumping from exercise to exercise like a fucking retard, right? I'm going to stick to movements that I can progress on safely and that I can take to failure because they are isolations. Or for example, I wouldn't do iliac pull downs, I would do pull-ups. I love pull-ups and inverted rows. So I won't do lat pull downs, for example, even though you may argue that they are better for hypertrophy. I'm going to stick to pull-ups because that's a movement I enjoy. I love pull-ups, right? And they are pretty good for hypertrophy too, so that's another thing to consider. Also, optimal isn't black or white. It's not optimal and not optimal. It's a spectrum. Some movements are better than others, right? For example, I can give you 2 examples, and that is that RDLs are better than conventional deadlifts for posterior chain gains, right? And ring push-ups are better than bench press for chest gains. But you can still do the other 2 movements for hypertrophy and get the same results because those movements, like you enjoy them, right? And you do them consistently and you progress on them and you get better at them, you're going to get the results no matter what. It's not so much how optimal something is, it's mostly how much you feel them, like how much the muscle works and how much you enjoy it, right? That's why I say you should look for optimal exercises as a guide and then find your individual variation. And from that, you think, do I enjoy this movement? Do I not? You look for another exercise if I don't, and stuff like that. And the last point is going to be stop looking for the answer and just look for a good enough answer, right, that you can replicate over time and progress, right? Action is more important than theory. So those are the points that I wanted to talk about today. Basically, do things right, take responsibility, take control, identify that you're constantly making mistakes and look for solutions to your mistakes. Listed a couple of common ones, but in general, those are like the most, those are my guidelines. Just know that you're a piece of shit and you're constantly lying to yourself, and realize that you're probably making a lot of mistakes, and try to identify those mistakes and try to correct them, right? Do not relegate responsibility to the environment or to someone else, because at the end you'll end up with no results, and you also lost your responsibility of yourself, your control over yourself. So, what? Okay. So yeah, that's the whole video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below, and thanks for watching.